Getting a title shot in the UFC requires fighters to put together wins over the top contenders in the division. Some fighters have received their title shots and went on to become champions, but there are some fighters who have struggled to get a title shot even when they have put together a solid winning streak. So here is 6 fighters who have struggled to get a title shot. Number 6. Juliana Pena defeated Jessica Rakoczy by TKO in the first round to become the Ultimate Fighter Season 18 winner. She next dominantly defeated Milana Dudieva and Jessica Ai, where she then faced former title challenger Kat Zingano in a title eliminator bout at UFC 200. In the fight, Juliana Pena dominated Kat Zingano using a relentless grappling to win the fight by a unanimous decision. Also on the same card, Amanda Nunes had defeated Miesha Tate by a rear naked choke in the first round to become the new UFC Bantamweight Champion of the world. With no clear number 1 contender in the Bantamweight division, Juliana Pena, who had put together an impressive 4-fight winning streak, seemed to be the next opponent for the new champion. Just a couple of weeks later, it was announced that the new champion Amanda Nunes would be defending a UFC Bantamweight title against former champion Ronda Rousey at UFC 207. She was next forced to face Valentina Shevchenko at UFC on Fox 23 to earn a title shot. In the fight, Juliana Pena was submitted in the second round via an armbar. Number 5. Ever since Tony Ferguson suffered his first loss in the UFC to Michael Johnson, he has defeated every contender which was given to him, where he put together an impressive 9-fight winning streak. He had defeated top UFC lightweights such as Gleison Tibau, Josh Thompson, Edson Barboza and former UFC lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos. With the current UFC lightweight champion Conor McGregor taking time off, the UFC decided to schedule a match between Tony Ferguson and Khabib Nurmagomedov for the interim UFC lightweight title at UFC 209. Both fighters were equally deserving of the title shot, and the winner would have likely fought Conor McGregor in a title unification bout in the future. Khabib Nurmagomedov fell ill prior to the weigh-ins and the fight was cancelled. With Khabib on the sidelines and with Conor McGregor taking a break, Tony Ferguson will now likely have to take 1 or 2 more fights to get his title shot. Number 4. Ryan Bader was always a top contender in the UFC light heavyweight division. Although his fighting style didn't excite the fans, he would always grind out a victory. After losing to Glover Teixeira at UFC Fight Night 28, he re-evaluated his whole game and came back better than ever, where he put together a 4-fight winning streak, defeating Anthony Perosh, Rafael Cavalcante, Ovin St. Preux and Phil Davis. In the title picture, Daniel Cormier had defeated Anthony Johnson by a rear naked choke in the 3rd round to become the new UFC light heavyweight champion of the world. With the former champion John Jones out of the picture, as well as no other clear number 1 contender in sight, it made perfect sense for Ryan Bader to get the next title shot. Instead, the UFC ended up giving Alexander Gustafsson a title shot, who was knocked out by Anthony Johnson at UFC on Fox 14 earlier in the year. Ryan Bader next defeated Rashad Evans by a unanimous decision and was forced to fight Anthony Johnson at UFC on Fox 18 to earn his title shot. In the fight, he was knocked out in the first round. He later defeated both Ilia Latifi and Antonio Rogerio Nogueira and left the UFC for Bellator MMA. Number 3. When Frankie Edgar made the drop down to the 145-pound division, he fought Jose Aldo for the UFC featherweight title for his debut in the division at UFC 156, where he came up short, losing the fight by a unanimous decision. He next put together a 5-fight winning streak, defeating Charles Oliveira, BJ Penn, Cub Swanson, Uriah Faber, and had just defeated Chad Mendes at the Ultimate Fighter Season 22 finale. In the same month, Conor McGregor had quickly defeated Jose Aldo and was now the reigning UFC featherweight champion. Jose Aldo was demanding a rematch, but Conor McGregor next had his eyes set on the UFC lightweight title. With both Jose Aldo and Frankie Edgar deserving a title shot, the UFC booked both fighters to fight for the interim UFC featherweight title at UFC 200, where the winner would likely get the next title shot. In the fight, Jose Aldo was able to dominate the fight, winning by a unanimous decision. Number 2. Ever since Yoel Romero made his UFC debut, he has just bulldozed his way through the middleweight rankings, defeating all of the top contenders in his path towards the title. He has notable victories over Tim Kennedy, Lyoto Machida and Jacare Souza. A failed drug test in 2015, where he tested positive for a growth hormone, prevented him from getting the next title shot. But later it was found that he was innocent, as the supplement he was taking was tainted. He made his comeback against Chris Weidman at UFC 205, where he knocked out Chris Weidman with a flying knee in the 3rd round, securing his title shot. Dana White mentioned that Yoel Romero definitely deserved the next shot at the UFC middleweight champion Michael Bisping. Just a couple of weeks later, the UFC had announced that they had come to terms with George St. Pierre and he would get the next shot at Michael Bisping in the summer. Just recently, the fight between Michael Bisping and George St. Pierre has been called off by UFC President Dana White due to GSP wanting more time to prepare for the fight. The UFC President Dana White recently mentioned that Michael Bisping is currently injured and that Yoel Romero will possibly face Robert Whittaker for the interim UFC middleweight title in the summer. Number 1. Demian Maia is one of the best Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioners to have ever stepped foot inside the octagon. He has just dominated the best fighters in the world, overwhelming them with his world-class Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He has notable victories over Dong-Yong Kim, Neil Magny, Gunnar Nelson, Matt Brown and Carlos Condit. He was next in line for the next title shot in the welterweight division and was waiting for the winner of the fight between Tyron Woodley and Stephen Thompson, who are going to fight for the UFC welterweight title at UFC 205. After the fight was ruled a majority draw, the UFC announced that they will be booking a rematch between both fighters for UFC 209. Just recently, Demian Maia was forced to put his 6-fight winning streak on the line when he faced Jorge Masvidal at UFC 211. After a very close fight, the split decision was given to Demian Maia. Now it finally looks like Demian Maia will get his long-awaited title shot against Tyron Woodley at a later date.